Hello everybody, Jeffrey McAvoy here. Sorry I haven't posted anything in a while, but I've been sick, so that's what life does to you sometimes. Anyway, back to this Chevy Corvette 327. Time to rebuild the fuel pump. Get this. I bought this fuel pump rebuild kit comprising of a new membrane, a new set of membranes, a new spring, and in this little envelope there is the non-return valves, the one-way non-return valves. There are two of them. A little dowel or rod, some rubber boot, a little spring, a little bush, and the gasket goes in between the pump body and the block. So first up, by removing the old derelict gasket with a razor blade and clean that up as good as possible, and it's just a matter of dismantling the two halves of the pump. Now first there's this little chamber which is held down by 4 screws. Apparently it's been up there for quite a while, so gave it a knock off, and this is what the original membrane felt like. Somewhat of like card or something, and this is the new rubber one cut to size, so it's much more supple obviously, which is nice. And then unscrew the all the screws that holds the two halves together on the periphery of the pump itself. There is only one way to put it, but you have to be careful about that. And that's the old membrane, is completely dry and hard after years of service. Now I'll remind you that this car's been laid up for the past 5 years, so nothing at all has moved since then. And it was most definitely time to recondition all of this rubbery components. Now, having a look at the non-return valves, they are both positioned in one-way direction. So in one way it will suck the fuel in, and the other way it will push it out. And just making sure that I have the exact correct parts, and comparing the old with the new is what I often do. I'm sure you have noticed by now. I haven't whipped out the caliper yet, but oh well, there it is. Never mind. Just making sure that everything is exactly up to scratch, and within spec. It's highly important to verify that the parts that are being used are the proper ones, and just knock out the old one-way valves with a drift. It's fairly easy, and although delicate, so you do have to be extra careful not to damage anything. And here's the quick comparison of the old versus the new. Now, to be fully honest, I find that the new ones are kind of flimsy compared to the original, but I suppose that they have simplified the technology, I guess. So it works now. I've had a go, and I made a video about the first start. Make sure you tune in to watch that later on. And it's just a matter of pressing the new non-return valve in with the small dead blower hammer, and giving a knock on the case with a thinner drift to fully press in the new non-return valve. And this is exactly the same procedure for the other side. Obviously you have to be careful in which way you place these valves, because if you put them upside down, then the pump is not going to work at all. So you have to be extra careful. And here with a center punch, which is nearing the end of its life, I actually dumped it by now. Again, on the case of the pump, strike it a couple of times to make sure that these fitments won't move anymore. Now, this new membrane I fitted with a drop of light oil to help it seat properly, and just sit the screws down and screw them progressively from the center outwards, as I usually do. And that's it for the bottom half of the fuel pump. That's pretty much it. It's a extremely simple device. which is pretty much never prone to failure unless the membranes go hard, as it is the case over here. So I noticed that there's this little aluminium tag with the reference number of the pump. It's highly important. I'm very glad that it's there. Quite often on parts like these, they have been discarded, or the previous person who's rebuilt them has forgotten to place it back. So it's very important that you keep that. So I straightened it out and set it aside, cleaned the screws, dumped the assembly in the ultrasonic cleaner as I usually do, and this is how it came out. Now it's just a matter of removing this little dowel, which serves as a pivot point for the lever. And here's a quick comparison of the old return spring versus the new. It's quite clear, even without the calipers, that the new one is considerably longer, which is good. And so remove the lever, and that's where the little bush goes as well. Here's a quick comparison of the old versus the new spring as well for the membrane, and it's also quite obvious that the new one is much better. Now here's a slick trick that I'm going to show you with the vernier caliper. In a case like this, when you have to measure something that is slightly off center, you can't really get an accurate reading. So if you flip your calipers over and use the back of it, it's actually calibrated for you to do so. So there's how you get an accurate reading on vernier calipers in situations like this. Very few people know this, and it's quite an interesting fact, so I hope that you find this interesting. Moving on, time to replace this little rubber boot, which job is to contain the engine oil, which could come from the engine, obviously, and avoid it from soaking up the chamber. So there it is. Here's the new membrane on the lever. So here's how it's supposed to fit. It's easier said than done. Trust me, it took me ages to figure out how to hook it back up. It's quite a fiddle to get it right. So I really can't really explain how to do it unless you try it yourself. So I obviously tried hooking it up without the spring first, just to make sure I could do it, because this spring is quite firm. In fact, as you can see, it's quite firm. So yeah, there you go. I've been trying for on and off, to get this thing in, and it was quite a pain in the butt. But I eventually got it. So it's just a matter of fiddling and getting things properly aligned and getting it right. And so once you do, just make sure that you did get the hook properly hooked up on the end of the membrane assembly. Make sure it doesn't pull out or fall off, which would render the pump useless and be quite annoying, because when it's on the car, it's fairly difficult to access, and it's a bit of a pain in the backside. So make sure that it works before you fit it. So putting back the new little pin right there, which serves as a pivot point for the lever, and the new return spring, which is considerably firm. Now if you add the two firmness of both springs, if that makes any sense, it does make for quite a bit of energy needed to make these things move. Now, time to put the two halves of the pump back together. There's only one way that you can do this, so make sure you get it right. I got it wrong the first time, and so I had to start again. So yeah, just make sure that you get all the screws tight by using the usual procedure of going in a crisscross pattern as it's a circle, and see how much force is required to get this pump to act, and watch it blow this dust that I put in front of me, just to make sure that it does work. So it does. Very happy. Now, as a matter of course, what I usually do is to put a little dab of colorful paint Not to make things pretty, but just to make sure that things don't untighten themselves with time. So you can just, at the first glance, you can tell if something has untightened itself or not. And that's pretty much it. Time to fit it back on the car and give the engine a test run. Make sure you tune in to watch that video. And by the way, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. We are now over 100 subscribers. Thank you so much. I really highly appreciate it. There are new subscribers every day. I really do like it. So thank you so much for showing your appreciation. It's really good and heartwarming and comforting to know that what I'm doing is interesting you to some extent. And so yeah, thank you so very much. Make sure that you drop a like, leave a comment, and I'll be catching you all in the next video where we get to try this baby out. Catch you later, fellas. Thanks for watching.